When I was a kid, when anything had to be done, especially in the yard, my mom would just announce, "All right, everybody outside, time to do yard work." We never knew what that actually meant. It just meant we were going to do something outside. Sometimes it was hauling out trash, sometimes it was going around the yard looking for paper and debris, sometimes it was raking leaves. But when my mom said it was time to go outside and clean, it was time to go outside and clean. And it wasn't just a little job. And it always evolved into something a lot bigger. I remember I would do a job, maybe I'd rake out a flower bed, and she'd come around and say, "Ah," and she would get right down in it, on her hands and knees, and she'd be like pulling all the leaves and stuff out, and she'd be weeding, and she'd be like, "Get down here, you're not done." I'm like, "Oh." So I saw how she did it, and that was the right way to do it. Now, I don't know if it's learned behavior or if it's inherited, but that's how I do it now. I'll go out, I love to putz around the yard, like to, "Oh, you know, this looks a little messy," and I'll start cleaning up. And the next thing you know, I've cleaned, half the backyard, I've cut the hedges down, halfway, and trimmed them up, and they're like, great. And this is what my mom used to do. Spring cleaning, really. Today I want to share a story that kind of relates to spring cleaning. The late Peter Marshall, he was the chaplain to the U.S. Senate, and he was very fond of telling a story called The Keeper of the Spring. This is a story about a mountain dweller who lived up in a forest in Austria, high above a village on the eastern slope of the Alps. This old gentleman was hired years before by a young town councilman, and his job was to keep the pools of water, the spring pools high up in the mountains, clear from debris, from leaves and branches. He would go every day and silently patrol the woods and look for these pools and the crevices in the stone. And he would check them out, and he would clear the debris and clear the silt so that the water, the crystal clear water, would flow down to the village. And this village, because he did that, was filled with life. The river that went by was crystal clear. It had beautiful swans that would swim up and down the river. And the farmlands all around were naturally irrigated because of the water that flowed through the area. There were many businesses along the river with water wheels that turned night and day, running their businesses. And the views from the side were picturesque beyond description. Just beautiful. And it became such a wonderful attraction for vacationers that really it became a destination spot. It continued this way for years and years, until one day, at one of the biannual meetings that the town council had, one of the members was looking through the budget, and he saw the line item for this spring keeper. And then he said, "Who is this? Why do we keep paying this salary year after year? We never see this guy. What good does he do? For all we know, he doesn't do anything at all." And by unanimous vote, they dispensed with his services. Now, nothing changed. For weeks and weeks, everything was just as it always had been. Beautiful water. But then, in the autumn, as the trees started to shed their leaves and they're falling down and they fell into the brooks, and the winds began to blow and the branches broke off and fell into the pools, it started to clog the flow of the fresh, clean water. And after a while, somebody noticed that the water had a little yellow-brown tinge to it. And a few days later, it got a darker brown. And a week later, they started to notice this slimy something on the surface along the edges of the river. Eventually, the water slowed. The wheels of those water wheels began to slow, and some stopped. The swans stopped coming, and so did the tourists. Quickly, the town council called an emergency meeting. They realized the gross error in their ways, and they quickly hired the keeper of the springs back. And he went to work, and he did the job he had always done, clearing the brook, clearing the spring and the pools. And soon after, the clean water started to flow, bringing the life back into that town. Now, I don't know if that's a real story. I don't know if it's based in truth, but it's got some wonderful lessons for us. Right? We can think about how water is life-giving. How many times have we heard in our lives that water is life? Because you can go around the world, and if they don't have water, they don't have life. Right? But what about the water that's within us, the springs that flow within us? Who is the keeper of the spring for us? I was thinking about this, that do we have debris in our lives that clogs up the flow of that water? And if we do, does it choke out the life down the road? And so it's so important that we, one, recognize that, wow, sometimes there is a reason to do some of that spring cleaning. And the important thing is that when we do it, it allows the waters to flow so that we can have renewed life, like what happened to that town after the springs were cleared. So just like when my mom said it's time to do yard work, or sometimes when I'm in my yard and I do an overhaul of the hedge, I do that spring cleaning, sometimes I recognize I need to do that internally. And I think we all have to if we want to have those life-giving, healthy waters in our lives.